Okay, I need you to really pay attention to what I'm about to say. Not the kind of attention where you're half listening and half scrolling. Actual attention. Because I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and every single time at some point they stop me and say, "Wait, how did you know that about me?" So, let's talk. You've got someone on your mind. Maybe they're still in your life. Maybe they left. Maybe it's complicated, and you don't even have a clean word for what it is. But here's what I know. You think about them more than you think you should. You replay conversations. You check your phone. You catch yourself midday, mid-sentence, just there. Back to them again. And here's the thing. You've probably told yourself this means something. That if it didn't mean something, it wouldn't feel this big. I'm here to tell you that's not exactly how it works. Let me explain something about your brain first, because this is where it all starts. Your brain was never designed to separate intensity from meaning. Think about that for a second. It wasn't built to say, okay, this feeling is strong, but is it actually pointing towards something real? No, it just registers. This is intense, therefore this matters. That's it. That's the whole process. So when someone comes along and makes you feel things you haven't felt in a while, or maybe ever, your brain immediately goes, this person is significant. This person is rare. Pay attention. Don't let this go. But here's what nobody tells you. The brain isn't reacting to the person, not really. It's reacting to the activation, to the stimulation, to the feeling of being more awake, more alive, more emotionally present than usual. And activation is not the same thing as love. I'll say that again, because I need it to land. Activation is not love. It just feels like it. Now let me tell you what's actually happening inside you when you can't stop thinking about someone. You know what dopamine is, right? The thing your brain releases when something good happens. Most people think it gets released when something feels good, but that's only half the story. Dopamine actually gets released in anticipation, in uncertainty, in the gap between wanting something and getting it. So here's what happens with this person. They're warm with you one day, distant the next. They text back immediately sometimes, other times, silence. And every time that pattern cycles, every time closeness follows uncertainty, your brain releases dopamine. Not because something good happened, because the uncertainty resolved. And here's the dangerous part. Unpredictable reward schedules are more addictive than consistent ones. That's not a theory, that's science. It's the same reason people can't stop checking their phone. You don't know if there's a notification. That not knowing is what keeps you coming back. So this person, the way they show up in waves, your brain isn't just noticing them anymore. It's being organized around them. Every quiet moment your mind drifts back. Every time your phone buzzes, some part of you hopes it's them. And you've probably felt a little crazy about that, like something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. You just weren't taught to recognize it. Okay, now I want you to sit with something a little uncomfortable. When someone triggers this kind of intensity in you, this level of emotional fixation, they are almost never doing it just by existing. They are landing on something that was already inside you, something unresolved, something you've been carrying for a while. Maybe they represent safety, and your history made safety rare. So when someone even resembles that, your nervous system goes quiet in a way it rarely does, and you call it connection. Maybe they represent freedom, or permission to feel something, or the version of yourself you've been waiting for someone to bring out. And here's where it gets tricky. You start to see them not fully as they are, but through the lens of what they represent to you. You fill in the gaps, the parts you don't know yet, you imagine. And the version you imagine is built from your own needs, not from evidence. Psychologists call this projection. And it doesn't mean you're delusional, it means you're human. It means you have needs, legitimate, real needs, that this person appeared to meet in a moment where you were open to being met. But here's what you have to understand. You can't build a real relationship with a projection. You can only build one with the actual person. And sometimes Those two things are very, very different. Let me paint you a picture, because I think this is easier to understand when you can see it. Someone is inconsistent with you. Some days they're incredible, some days they pull back. And every time they come back, every time the warmth returns after the distance, you feel relieved, like something was resolved. That relief, that's the moment the attachment deepens, not because understanding grew, because your nervous system associated this person with the end of discomfort. And now you're not just attached to who they are. You're attached to how they make you feel when things are good. And you keep chasing that feeling, through the distance, through the confusion, through the moments that don't quite add up. And over time, you start rationalizing things. You tell yourself they're complex, that good things are complicated, that the difficulty is part of what makes it meaningful. But real emotional connection, healthy emotional connection, it doesn't feel like a problem you're constantly solving. It feels like ground. It feels like a place you can exhale. I want to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. When you're with this person, or when you imagine being with them, are you relaxed or are you performing? Are you yourself, or are you a version of yourself that's trying to hold their attention? Do you feel more certain of yourself after spending time with them? Or do you leave with more questions than you arrived with? Because here's what I've seen over and over. The right person, not perfect, but right. They don't make your life more confusing. They make it simpler, not because things are always easy, but because the baseline is clear. You know where you stand. You don't have to decode everything. The person who keeps you in a constant state of analysis, who keeps you guessing, keeps you reaching, keeps you wondering, that kind of intensity can feel like love. But what it often is unresolved. And unresolved is not the same as deep. So here's what I want to leave you with. You are allowed to feel what you feel. I'm not telling you to shut it down. I'm not telling you to walk away from something before you've actually looked at it clearly. What I'm telling you is this: slow down inside the feeling. Instead of asking, how do I feel about this person? Start asking, how do I consistently feel in this dynamic over time? Not in the good moments, not when it's exciting, but on the average Tuesday, on the day after you talked and something felt off, but you couldn't name it. On the morning when you woke up and the first thing that happened was a wave of anxiety you couldn't explain. That is the data that matters. Because if this is real, if this person and this connection are actually what you need, it will survive your clarity. It will not require you to ignore things. It will not ask you to be smaller or more patient or more forgiving than is reasonable. And if it does require those things, if the only way it works is if you stop asking questions and just keep feeling, then what you're holding on to is not a connection. It's a cycle. And you, more than you probably know, deserve something better than a cycle.